Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So today's video we're going to be talking about a bit of an advanced tactic. One that probably most veteran Imperial Guard commanders will be familiar with, but for new Imperial Guard commanders starting out, it's an important lesson to learn. So, speaking of new Imperial Guard players, let's imagine that you started out with a bunch of buddies and you've been playing your games and you've been doing really well with the Imperial Guard, because a lot of Imperial Guard are a very good army to start with because they're initially very powerful. You often outnumber your opponent. You've got infantry, you've got tanks, you've got heaps of everything, and you find yourself sort of, mass infantry charges backed by some Lehman Russes. Standard Imperial Guard tactics. But as your gamer group gets more experienced, your opponents start being able to deal with these human wave tactics, and you find that they become less and less effective, and then you find they just stop becoming useful. Your opponents have found either ways of deploying enough firepower to just out-attrition you, or they are able to outmaneuver you. And maybe you start playing more complicated games like Maelstrom, and you find that you're absolutely bashing your opponents on the battlefield, but they're just running away with the Maelstrom points. It's when you get to that point in sort of your career as an Imperial Guard commander that you have to start looking for ways to add advanced maneuverability to your force. Now, some of you will be like, well, chimeras and stuff. Yeah, that's true, but chimeras are more of a pillbox. Unless you're running the Talon trait, you'll find most transports are more pillboxes. They do move around when they need to, but generally they're pillboxes. Or maybe, as I know many commanders are, you're a pure infantry commander. I know a lot of people that are mainly infantry commanders. And this channel was originally set up by me as a pure infantry commander. How do you then add that maneuverability to your force? Well, I have a tactic that I like to call opening up a second front. Now, the difference between... the concept is essentially having units in reserve that you bring in and you use them to open up a whole new front line against the enemy. Now, the difference between this and just having some kind of deep striking alpha strike is that this is a sustained battlefront. This isn't a drop and pop. This isn't a suicide mission. This is a whole new front line being open and hitting the opponent from two angles with maximum attrition. Now, there are essentially three ways to do this. The first way is with the Talon ambush stratagem. I've discussed this before, one of my videos last week. But the Talon ambush stratagem allows you to put 3 units in reserve. But because it's a stratagem that takes place before the game has even begun, technically, you can use it multiple times. Now, if you're running a brigade, or maybe you're taking a couple of battalions, that gives you access to a lot of command points. Now, if you combine, let's say you outflank 6 units, you do the ambush stratagem twice, that's fantastic. You could then use the relic, the dagger of Tushaka, to outflank the bearer and another unit. So that's potentially 8 units that you could outflank. Now, I used to use this tactic back in when we had the 5th edition codex with Captain Aurahem. I've been recently reusing it, bringing it out of the retirement, shall we say. It is still very effective. Yes, the big FAQ has affected it, but it is still very effective. And I like to use 3 veteran squads, 3 infantry squads, and 2 company commanders, and that's what I outflank. It's 60 infantry is a huge amount for the opponent to deal with, especially considering you can outflank them from anywhere you want, from your opponent's deployment zone. To reinforce your own front lines. They can be used for most things, but how you want to be doing it is you don't want to spread them out. You want to be bringing them on as one big blob and opening up a whole new front. The second way of doing this, that's probably, I'd say, the cheapest way of doing it. That's going to set you back probably about 500 points, because a veteran scores 60 points, an infantry scores 40 points, it's 100 points. You do that 3 times, it's 300 points. But then you've got to buy like grenade launchers, plasma guns, and heavy bolters. So it's going to be about 500 points. Okay. Now, the second way of doing it is mass scions. Now, Scions traditionally have been used as a suicide unit. You drop in 4 plasma guns backed up by a Tempesta, you blow the shit out of something, and then you die. Well, that is useful, but that's a very short-term gain, and that can be neutralised by the opponent having effective screening. Well, instead of bringing down 2 or 3 Scion units and then them dying, bring down 40 or 50 Scions. I have done this. It is incredibly powerful. It really is. In fact, Scions are quite durable. So it's with them, what I like to do is actually, I have my main forces advancing down the centre, and then I deployed 25 Scions on one side, normally it being a 2 10-man Scion squads, a command squad, and a Tempesta. I'll do 25 on the left flank, 25 on the right flank, and I literally hit them from 3 directions. But you can deploy all 50 in one place to absolutely overwhelm it. Now, the reason this is important is because it means that, yes, your opponent will have screening, but screening is much more effective against suicide units because they aren't able to achieve their job, which is to go down, kill something, and then die. This is opening up a new front. So they're not dropping down to kill something and then die. They're dropping down to absolutely open up almost a second battlefield. And Scions are durable with a 4+ save. They're with the deep strike allow them to go almost anywhere. They can go into like cover. They're really good. Now, the disadvantage is this is very, very expensive. Okay, you know, a 10-man Scion squad is 100 points. Backing that up with putting plasma guns in there, hot shot volley guns, you're definitely running yourself to 600. Well, more than 600. I'd say probably 700 points, 700 points, which is a lot to drop in. Now, the problem with these 2 things that I've mentioned is they're both infantry based. Now, they do provide maneuverability and they do allow you to, take advantage of, Maelstrom and secondaries like line break, games are won and lost. But the problem is when they drop down, they're committed. And Scions especially, the weapons are short ranged, and if you're facing an opponent with high maneuverability, just like Mechanized Eldar, who will just fuck off 16 inches in the other direction, it can be tricky. Now, the third option is not really, it's not an infantry based option, it's a mechanized based option. It's what I like to call fast movers. These are units that start off on the battlefield, so they are susceptible to just getting hit turn 1 and being useless, but they start off on the battlefield and they're able to just really get up the battlefield and start doing damage early on. And my favourite 2 units for doing this, well, favourite 3 units really, are Hellhounds, Taurox Primes and Valkyries. These are the advantage of this. The disadvantage is, like I said, your fast movers might get damaged before they even get a chance to open up that second front. The advantage is that they have longevity. They have long-term maneuverability. Ambushers will come in from a flank, dominate a flank, but then may be left out of position if your opponent chooses to avoid them. Same with Scions, but these guys have got 12-inch or more maneuverability, which means they can get from one side of the battlefield to the other quickly, and it's very hard for your opponent to outrun them. And they've got good long range. Infernocan's got a 16-inch range. That's really nice. Plus a 12-inch move. That's a 28-inch range, I believe. That's insane. Now, like I said, that's the way I've done this in my last game. It was against Deathwatch. This is where this picture's from. And I had 3 Hellhounds with Inferno Cannon and Heavy Flame and 2 Valkyries with some veterans inside. And the Valkyries had lots of rocket pods and heavy bolters and multi-lasers. Now, the thing is that this is obviously a lot of anti-infantry, and it relies upon, and this is the whole opening of the second front, relies upon both halves working together. What you have to understand is that both halves of your army, the second front and the original front, have to try and be of equal threat. You don't want one absolutely outshadowing the other. If you don't bring enough to the outflankers then they'll get swept away relatively easily, and it won't be, or they'll just be ignored, and they won't actually do much. You don't want to put too much in. You don't want to put too much into your main force, because then, I should say, you don't want to put too much into the outflanker. Sorry, because then the main force doesn't have the ability to support you. What you need is both forces to work together and to be of equal threat, because this will tempt your opponent to split his fire and put half his firepower into one front and half his firepower into the other, and that won't be enough to stop either, and he essentially wastes all his firepower. And it is really effective. So that's the 3 ways that I like to open up what I call a second front. I found it very effective, and for any of you that have seen the film Zulu, I recommend you go and watch it. I think it's available on YouTube, of the full film. They talk about this concept of the horns of the buffalo, and how the main body of troops advance forward whilst the horns hit the enemy on the flanks. And the enemy is tempted to split his firepower into all 3 areas. Well, in our case, we're just talking about 2. It's a one-horned buffalo. But the problem is that by trying to hit all the Zulus at once, the main force will die. And this is what you're trying to achieve with the enemy. You want to be the Zulus hitting your opponent from all flanks, and he's unable to defend everything at once. And some players will focus fire, and they will do a serious amount of damage to one of your battlefronts, but the hope is that there's still enough left in the second battlefront, second battle line, and it sticks, and it puts the enemy between a rock and a hard place. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Leave lots and lots of comments. Tell me how you guys have been opening up second battlefronts. What do you use for it? Maybe some mad, beautiful bastard is spamming Hades breaching drills and shoving engineers up out of them. I don't know. I haven't tried that, but that sounds cool. So tell me what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.